All right. It looks like we are live. Hello to everyone. We already got 2 people tuning in, and I know it's going to grow in just a couple seconds. So, wanted to say hello and happy Thursday to everyone. I'm here with the great Skyla Hearn. We'll be starting this next episode of Out of the Archives in just a couple moments. We're going to give people some time to filter on in. Feel free to write in the comments section because we can see it. My mom just wrote in the comments section, "Hello, mom."
Hi, Mom.
All right. We are slowly building viewership. We'll be starting this in just a couple minutes. Hello, Annie Cullen. Thanks for joining us today. We hope that everyone's been having a good week, staying safe when they can. It's day 1 million of quarantine and staying inside and social distancing. And we know it can be grating on folks' mental health. So we hope that everyone is taking care of themselves. That's very important to do. Alrighty. All right, everyone, we're going to be kicking this off in just another minute. Thank you for your patience. Ooh. Sorry, figuring out some technical issues that I was having earlier, and I think we are all good to go. On behalf of the National Public Housing Museum. All right. Sorry, my internet has been very slow and peculiar today, but I think everything's good to go now. So without further ado, let's start this episode. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the, I believe, third digital, fourth in total episode of Out of the Archives. My name is Mark Jeschke. I am the oral history coordinator at the NPHM, and tonight I'm going to be your MC as well. And we're going to be sharing the fourth episode of Out of the Archives. On behalf of the museum and everyone who's on staff and everyone who works with us, We'd like to thank you so much for taking time out of your hectic lives to listen to this series. Since 2017, the museum has been collecting oral histories from current and former public housing residents in order to create a repository that is designed not only as a space to learn about the long and varied history of public housing from across the country, but also to be a direct source of knowledge to inform public policies and inspire future generations from the stories of resilience and community. Tonight's episode, we have a special guest, so I won't be boring you the entire time. We are here with Skyla Hearn, one of Chicago's most inspiring archivists. Also happened to be one of my professors when I was at UIC in the Museum and Exhibition Studies program. Skyla is a member of the Blackivists, a Chicago-based collective of trained Black archivists who prioritize Black cultural heritage preservation and memory work, and was very recently just hired as the manager of archives for all of Cook County, which is, holy crap, it's amazing. So if you tuned in last month's Out of the Archives, which by the way is still available to listen to on our Facebook or watch on our Facebook and listen to on our website and SoundCloud page, which I'll provide links in the comment section at the end of this episode. You'll know that one of the important pillars of this project is to use the stories in this archive to radically expand the base of American history. What's going on in our country right now is nothing new. Systemic racism has been embedded in our country from its foundation, and recently due to a national and global uprising as a collective people, we've been given another opportunity to address these issues and demand real change. As we know, the fight for justice and equity is not one that will ever be solved overnight. But as a cultural institution, the museum wanted to offer up this episode as a reminder of who we were fighting for. As Tony Cade Bambara said, the role of the artist and cultural worker is to make the revolution irresistible. And we hope by sharing these stories, you will be inspired to continue the fight for racial justice. In tonight's episode, which was curated by myself and one of the museum's oral historians, Shakira Johnson, you will hear from storytellers from across time and location from Chicago Public Housing, highlighting the talents and strengths of their communities. Those narrators include Mary Baggett of the Jane Addams Homes, Fred Cash of the Dearborn Homes, Saquon Lawrence of the Robert Taylor Homes, Raymond McDonald of Cabrini Green, Congressman Bobby Rush of the Hilliard Homes, Francine Washington of Stateway Gardens, and Bruce Wilkerson of the Ida B. Wells Homes. This episode is entitled Black is Beautiful, Reflections on Arts, Culture, and Activism, and the stories span from 1953 to the present day. And while you're listening to this episode, we encourage you to interact in the Facebook comment section with questions, thoughts, and whatever else comes to mind that you might have during this episode, and we will do our best to address those at the end of the episode. I'm also really quickly going to be sharing, let's see if I can do this from this app. I just have to sign into Facebook. I'm sharing right now a transcript for this episode. So if you want to read along with us, we invite you to do that. So that link is in there. And without further ado, this is episode 4 of Out of the Archives, Black is Beautiful, Reflections on Arts, Culture, and Activism. We thank you for tuning into our listening series, Out of the Archives. In each episode, we will share a diverse range of stories told by public housing residents from our oral history archive. Each episode features a different theme that responds to our mission to preserve, promote, and propel the right of all people to a place where they can live and prosper, a place to call home. Stories make up the backbone of any culture. They tell us who we are and where we are from. They create empathy and understanding. They allow us an opportunity to share our experiences and learn from the words of others. The stories in our archive lift up the voices of an oftentimes marginalized community and create a space for important conversations to happen. In this episode, Black is Beautiful, Reflections on Art, Culture, and Activism, current and former public housing residents share a range of stories that exemplify not only that Black lives matter, but are creative, full of joy, courageous, and essential. The storytellers you will hear from include Mary Baggett of the Jane Addams Homes, Fred Cash of the Dearborn Homes, Saquon Lawrence of the Robert Taylor Homes, Raymond McDonald of Cabrini Green, Congressman Bobby Rush of the Hilliard Homes, Francine Washington of Stateway Gardens, and Bruce Wilkerson of the Ida B. Wells Homes. The stories span from 1953 to the present day.
All right, my name is Saquon Lawrence. We played sports, so that was part of the community bonding, right? Is playing football, right? Which was a big sport for us. I didn't play a lot of baseball. I played some softball, but it was really football was the sport for us back in the 60s. And so that was a big deal. You had parties, but I remember I was so young, so I didn't go to a lot of parties, right? But I remember my older brother and my first cousin, again, like my sister, I remember them going to parties. So they were teenagers, right? So I remember, so here's the thing, it's kind of like prototypical in a way. It's part of the popular culture, the part of African American history, but the idea of the doo-wop singers in the hallways on the corner, I saw that. I heard them. So when I look at these movies about the 60s, right, I remember. And so that was part of our community, the parties, the singing, the sports, the social aspects of it, I guess is probably a good way to talk about it, the social constructs. It was just powerful for me as a kid, right? So yeah, that's what I mean. And then we weren't into church really, but I remember that because we had a church across the street and you could see it from our porch. So the social aspects of it.
Hi, my name's Francine Washington. I'm a public housing resident. I had a paint party, about 9 gallons of paint. And I have a lot of friends. So I got all my friends, some of my sisters and brothers, and some of my friends, about 9 gallons of paint. And that, first of all, the paint department is bicep green or cayenne blue. Those are the worst colors. The green and blue that you can stand. And I sat there one night. I saw so tired of these green walls. I don't know what to do. Everything was green through the whole apartment, even the bathroom. So I just had me some. I was going to college. So I got me a magic marker, and I just started in the corner, and I just started drawing shapes all over the apartment. The ceiling, everybody just got a chair, went to the ceiling, draw, started drawing shapes. It was so nice. Everybody said, "Oh, that's a nice puzzle on the wall." A couple months later, I said, "Puzzle look nice," because on the black permanent marker. I said, "That's a nice puzzle. I need to do something." So I went and bought me 9 gallons of paint, 9 brushes, same size. I got all now I got about 2 sisters and 2 brothers, and 5 more friends together, male and female. So we got a paint party. When we finish painting, I'm gonna feed y'all. Y'all listen to some music, enjoy your work. And I gave everybody a brush, and they got the paint. And every 30 minutes, I said, don't paint everything, just paint in this square, and make sure you stay inside the line with the shapes. And every 20 minutes, I said, switch this buckle, and we switched, we finished switching. One of my walls actually had the continent of Africa on it. Other wall had a lot of like Doonesbury, Indian little books, had a lot of cartoon characters, abstract. Each one of my walls was so different, so unique in the colors. They just put colors everywhere. Matter of fact, I got pictures of that home. And when we finished, we were like, oh man, what did we do? It was so unique. It was so amazing. I could not believe it. It was so amazing. I got my little curves, all different colored curves, just sheer curves, put them up to one of the master paints. Never said Jay wanted to show off this. They would bring it to my apartment. Then I got me some red and some blue carpets, put them down, split them in half for the room, red and blue. Although I didn't have no red and blue on my walls, but I had a pink, a light blue, a cayenne, yellow, purple, I had about 9 different colors. It was, oh gosh, wish I had bought some of the pictures. It was just, everybody wanted me to paint their apartment. This is me. And I had all kinds of stuff on each one of the walls I got from different thrift stores and put them up. This looked like an African wall. This was pirates and ships and stuff like that. This one had the big This one had the big globes there on this wall. You had the curtain over here, and they had little cars up there from the Roaring 20 car, big little metal plate cars I got from thrift store. It was really nice. And I called myself in the bedrooms. I painted about 5 different colors, and when the folks came out, they really was interested in my bedroom walls, because they said it looked like the Underground Railroad passenger had painted. And I didn't think nothing like that. I was just doing something to make it look attractive, because I ain't looking nothing worse than looking at a bare wall or all white wall. I mean, you got kids, right? One child in. You got to give them something to focus on. You can't have a pretty, or this house is so pretty, you got one picture, the rest of the walls is white. There's nothing for them to make their mind wander, nothing for them to think about. They need abstract. Every wall was different. And that's how I taught my kids to take colors. I had an apartment that had 104 colors in it. I taught my kids, I was growing my baby, what's this color? What's this color? They learned their colors by every color I had in my apartment. One apartment had to see it, had 104 colors. And my bathroom, since Pac-Man was coming out there, I changed my bathroom. Look like I just got me by the little meats in the pack, and had that card, that paper, fresh paper in it, the styrofoam paper. I started saving them when I buy my meats, because I always separate my meats. And I got enough of them, I started cutting out the Pac-Man figures. So my washroom wall, I just painted the Pac-Man, the little Power Men and little bullets. That was so cool.
Hi, my name is Fred Cash. My first apartment was over at 300 South Damon. It was a senior building. It was funded with HUD, and I moved in there from June 1989 till 06, and I was 19 going on 20 when I got my first apartment. And I went and I did some college over at Malcolm X. At that time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to explore being out on my own. I was just learning how to cope with being disabled. And like I said, I've learned to accept it as years go by. I've had some medical challenges, asthma, high blood pressure, anemic, you name it, I had it. And I do good, and I thank God for Jesus and people keeping me motivated, and the church keeping me motivated. So the thing of it is that growing up, if you can't, I'm like this, if you can't make it in Chicago, you can't make it anywhere. You know, I'm an old school Democrat, and I've done a lot of political work, political volunteering, and fighting for causes to break barriers for disabled people. And
Can you name some of them?
Working with disability advocacy groups, far as we, back in 1979, we worked with Governor James Thompson. He was the governor at the time, and we fought for the health and healthcare system for the people with healthcare that have healthcare that comes to their house. And also we did that, and we did some other legislative things, and making the pay services. The pay services that the people are enjoying now. So the thing of it is, back then they didn't have a lot of disability things for the disability. Barriers wasn't being broken like they are now. So we wrote. I work with various, like I say, disability groups to get those laws passed with the ADA law, and try to make everything more accessible for people with disabilities.
Hi, I'm Raymond McDonald. Shaq.
Shaq.
Yeah, that's what most people where I'm from call me. It's a lot that I didn't know growing up about my neighborhood that I was living in. But what I did know, it was resilient. We marched. We fought the mayors as far as going to his offices and marching on this property, telling him our demands as a community, having a voice. And I'm seeing this in my young years. It was really, really cool to me, like just like to see the Black power, you know, just to see how people have a voice, have something to hold on to. It made a difference to me growing up. It gave me a sense of self, to see others having a sense of self and knowing what they wanted. Home stability, stability in itself with life, a community. And when you see a person fighting for their community, you have to involve yourself, whether you're in that community or not, because you see a multitude of people fighting for a purpose. And that's what the bigger thing for me was, coming from Cabrini, being from Cabrini. What's my bigger purpose in life, being from here, from a place with this much history?
My name is Bruce Wilkerson. They had a citywide talent show of all the projects across the city. Okay, and at the time, I was singing. I had a little old singing group that I was a part of, and we won for our area. And there were several. Let me see. You had the Ickes. There was the Ickes housing unit, the Dearborn Homes, Wills, Stateway, Robert Taylor, and there's another one on the lakefront that I'm trying to recall the name. It's right there on Oakwood. It started at Oakwood and extended to the Oakwood and Lake Park, and extended south, roughly, I think, to 41st place, or well, at best, Oakenwall High School. For those of us who lived in that area, they know exactly where the Oakenwall School was. But it started there on the lakefront, right by the IC track, and it extended south for that couple of blocks or so, block and a half, 2 blocks. But anyway, we won the talent show for our area. Out of all the acts and things, we came out on top. Now we went downtown. I'm trying to think of the hotel, but the hotel doesn't exist anymore. But they had the coming together where we actually got to sing. They recorded us that night when we sang, because we sang at the banquet. We were announced as the winners overall. We actually won the citywide talent show, which really was exciting, especially to my family. You know, they was like, "Oh God, Bruce, he's a winner at something." Yeah, well, hey, we were just having fun. But anyway, because of that, we got recorded. Like I said, they played our recording on WVON. Okay, what song was we were singing? The Platters song, "I Love You 1,000 Times." That's what we were singing that night. We knew way more than that, but that night, that's what we sang. And they played it. I actually heard the recording the next day on WVON, which just blew me away. It kind of reminded me of the Five Heartbeats when they heard their record on the radio for the first time. Well, pretty much that's what happened to me. I woke up on the tail end of the song, and just in time to hear the DJs call our names and tell why they played the song.
Mary Baggett. Just seeing our kids out here on the streets with nothing to do kind of motivated me to want to step up to the plate to see them have a better life. You know, I mean, people sit around and they don't allow our kids to interact in programs that take place out here. Heartland not getting out, being more active like they should with the community. That kind of really made me step up to the plate, because I looked at them like, you know, you all have all the resource to help get these youth off the street, to be able to send them out job hunting, to put them in a program to show them that they can learn different trades to be able to go out to get the job that they need, skill settings and different stuff like that. And it just pushed me, because all I would see was come into here and see was flyers sitting on a desk. And I'm like, all these flyers on the desk, but they're not reaching out to the community. How would the community know what you have going on if nothing is reaching out to them? So it kind of had made me feel like people only cared about getting a number. And if they got a number quote, they were okay. It's not like they really cared about the peoples themselves coming in to get the job done. It's just they really cared about getting a signature. So it kind of stopped me from signing their paperwork, because all you cared about was, you got my signature. And once you got my signature, it went downtown to CHA, showing that you got your number quote. You met your record, you know, and I just felt like nothing was getting done. It was time to make a change and stay on top of them, stay on top of CHA, stay on top of management and everybody that's supposed to deal with this community overall.
My name is Bobby Lee Rush. Oh, I was probably 12, 13 when the civil rights movement, Dr. King, became very prominent on the news. And I would see images of the marches in the South, the boycott, Montgomery boycott, and images of seeing young black people really doing something that I never heard of before. And I was attracted to it. Somehow it spoke to my spirit. I prior to that, I would always lament the fact that I was born at the wrong time, because everything had been discovered according to my limited view at the time. I couldn't discover the West, because the West had already been discovered. All my heroes had gone out and discovered the world, you know, and so what else was there? So what use was there for me? Why was I born in the spirit? I thought I was born too late for all that. And little did I know that life's horizon I never fully discovered. You know, you always, the potential of life is always there, and the fight for justice and peace and love is always there. It's always there. So that explored spirit, that the things I read about, the people I read about, in terms of how they may have been discovered, you know, the geographical world as a spiritual world, and the human world as the horizon for human capacity is just so huge that we can all be relevant. I mean, I learned that, and I became. That's why I got into the movement, because I had that urge. I had that yearn to do something, to discover something, to meet somebody, to come something, to be an agent of change.
Once again, the NPHM thanks you for listening to this episode of Out of the Archives. This series is supported by the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the Illinois Arts Council Agency, the Kresge Foundation, and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. This episode was engineered by Seth Engel at Palette Sound. We'd like to give a huge thanks once more to our storytellers, Mary Baggett, Fred Cash, Saquon Lawrence, Raymond McDonald, Congressman Bobby Rush, Francine Washington, and Bruce Wilkerson, as well as the members of the museum's Oral History Corps and the other Chicago oral historians who helped to gather these stories, including Shirley Alfaro, Kimberly Cook, Ina Cox, and Shakira Johnson. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you next month. History Archive. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to this episode. We hope that these stories inspire you to continue doing the important work of bending the arc towards justice in the days, weeks, months, and even years to come. We are awake, we are aware, and we must never stop fighting to dismantle white supremacy in America. As I had mentioned earlier in this episode, we are here today with Skyla Hearn, and we are going to have a little discussion about the museum's oral history archive and the ways that we are really beginning to reassess the importance of shared authority and accessibility, as well as her work with the Blackavists and how it interplays with her work at the NPHM and also just social justice archiving on the whole. So we have Skyla coming in 2, 1. Hello.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. This is a really great opportunity, of course. Thank you so much for being here in this space. But what a wonderful program, and just listening again, to these voices. I really have to give thanks and homage to all of our narrators who have gifted their stories to the NPHM archive. And just in general, when we think about the importance of having these voices and these perspectives, and when I say these, I mean of people in cases of folks who are not, as I like to say, of the hegemony, Black and brown people, marginalized people, but, having them be in a position to be able to provide us with their first person experiences, and then to have that information in archives, it's a very powerful thing, especially when we know that, historically, this is not how, archives and archival spaces have been designed, and so actually, as I was listening again, to the stories, and thinking about, the title of today's program, Black is Beautiful, Beauty is Black. I think about my own upbringing here. I'm a native Chicagoan, very proud, South Side. And I think about during the 80s, there's this campaign, Black is Beauty or Black is Beautiful campaign. And I remember seeing the billboards, across the South Side. And one of the billboards was on State Street, right across the street from the Robert Taylor homes. And so I'm just drawing in my connection with public housing in Chicago, and having family members who, lived in Ida B. Wells, and, what my experiences were there, and, attending cookouts in my aunt's backyard with she and my cousins and other family members, and, just really drawing in on all of those really great experiences that we had, and, just thinking about today and the program and some of the stories that were shared, I want to just throw out some terms and some phrases that, really spoke to me during the conversations. So community bonding, the being power filled as well as powerful, resilience, direct collective action, spirituality in the human connection, the yearning to do something, motivation, accountability, and again, just thinking about Black joy, because each of these stories was definitely an example of that, which is something that I want to challenge us, and put a call out there to remember that while yes, these are very heavy times, and we are definitely fighting, but to also think about the things that bring us joy, and to think about the collective actions that we can, like the collective actions, collective movement, that can continue to encourage like upliftment, and the ability for us to be able to carve out areas of our lives and our work together where we can in fact be celebratory. And so, on the point of, the yearning to do something, that Bobby Rush mentioned, and, thinking about in particular Francine's story, where, within her story, she talked a lot about, the paint colors, and, and this of course could be like me interpreting, but what I felt from that story was just that, think about it. If every space that you go into has like this oppressive color, and you're like, oh, this is just really bringing me down. And then like she has this moment where, she decides to just completely redesign, reconfigure her space. And I can only imagine what that does for your spirit. I mean, for the last few months, we've been quarantining, we've been, in place. And a lot of us are just, we can't wait to get outside, or just to be outside of the four walls that just, like trap us in. And so when you think about like what those actions are, the ability to uplift your spirits, deal and to utilize like whatever resources you have at your fingertips, I just think about, like how much power that is, and, and also practicing the ability to bring like a particular creation into fruition. And so, to that point, I like to draw in what we're talking about, related to, the way that we're thinking at MPHM in terms of developing this oral history archive, from a person-centered perspective. Right. A lot of these archives out here, of majority institutions are really focused on content. Content is absolutely very important, but, we can't have the content without having people. And it's very important to hear from the people who have created this content, and also to, form, collaborations and partnerships with them where we're centering their voices. So, currently the work that we're in the process of creating, as we think about, how to develop our oral history archive, very much so centers our narrators, our contributors, at the heart of, what it is that we plan to bring forward and to provide to the public through this type of archive, which is very much so partnered, or in alignment with the work that we do as a part of our collective, the Black Abyss Collective, and our mission there is, to provide professional expertise on cultural heritage archiving and preservation practices, to document historically underdocumented communities. Very much so, and it's very much so, excuse me, is what I was going to say. It's all very much so aligned with what's happening with MPHM as well. And, you may ask yourselves like, well, how is that different, or why is that important? It's important because people, again, are put in the center of that. And these are people who, have historically been marginalized, who historically have not been a part of the American history. that, you know, a lot of us have had to unlearn in the latter parts, you know, of our lives, as, you know, we've become really learned and really educated about, you know, the establishment of this country, the treatment of people, you know. And so these stories, and in this case, you know, oral history stories, and then in other cases through artwork, when you look at the images that we shared with you earlier, you know, all of this information provides this counter story to what we're told about, you know, who people are, right? Like our perspective is to be able to present, you know, oppressed people in as much of a positive light as possible. And what better way to do that through, you know, primary source materials. And so, well, I'll leave it there for a moment, Mark. If you know, if you have something to add in there, I feel like I'm just going and going and going because again, you know, archives, Blackness, you know, and you know, being in a position to be able to support, inform, co-pilot, you know, as folks are thinking about, you know, how to preserve their stories, you know, all of these things are at the core of, you know, what I believe and what I'm very passionate about, you know, supporting. So,
Yeah, I love the phrase co-piloting. I think that that's such a an accurate representation of what I think, you know, Skylar and I've had like many discussions kind of figuring out what this archive is going to look like when it's released to the public. And one of those things that we thought of very early on in this project was how to not just like share authority in like a traditional sense, where maybe there's like some assistance with when audio is presented. But what we decided to do for our archive is from the get-go, the narrators are going to be working to create tags and to sort of demarcate what their story means to them, and being able to have that sort of space where, as opposed to traditionally museum workers, museum professionals, sort of assess, you know, what has been left by a storyteller, what an artifact is. By being able to expand on that, I just think it's so important, especially now as we're really kind of thinking about like the duality of like narratives, like across the country and really across the world. And I just love the phrase co-piloting. I think that's like so like helpful to think about, because it really, like, what we want to be doing is giving the narrators space to, you know, share their life history, to you know, and what happens from there. It really runs the gamut of different opportunities and different ways that those people's stories can be used by scholars and activists, or like creative, like artists and musicians. It's just a really beautiful archive, and I'm really excited that we've been able to really work to get everything close to being public. I don't have a date for anyone right now, but we're really excited with where this has been going.
Yeah.
And I saw a question earlier. Are we going to see the speakers? So I do want to address that really quickly. So another part of this initiative to really diversify, you know, who describes these stories. We're actually, once we really begin the in a safe way, once we begin to collect stories again, and even now, like backtracking, we're asking narrators to provide any photo that represents themselves. So that could be a selfie, that could be a professional photo, it could be a photo of like their family, it could be a photo of like their first car, it could be their favorite pets. and being able to have that sort of that play of how people describe their stories, I think is a really special opportunity.
Yeah. And I just want to throw something in there too, because you were talking about use of the stories and to that point, just thinking about accessibility, especially as it relates to the National Public Housing Oral History Archive, I think it's very important that, and which is something that we've definitely considered and we continue to think about, is providing access like to multiple level users. And the other part of that too that I really want to just focus on and bring like strong attention to is that our narrators, the fact that they've contributed these stories and that they live amongst other stories that connect to all of these various experiences, but they themselves can look to what their contributions have been and say, hey, look at that, that's where we are here as well. And in a sense it serves, when I think about like family photo albums and things like that, so it serves as information that stays in place for them to refer to, to be able to share with their communities as well, and which I think is extremely important. And and also in the spirit of thinking about like access and openness, that is the other thing. Like we feel that information should be publicly accessible, so we're not hiding or keeping this archive at bay away from from our public, and working working with folks to preserve and manage and safe keep these narratives.
Yeah. And we have Giovanna Jones who's asking, where can we find more information about the Blacktivist Collective?
Well, Giovanna, thank you for that question. You can find information about us on our website at theblacktivists.com. So that's BLACKIVISTS.com. Theblacktivists.com.
You can also find them on Instagram at the Blackivists, and on Twitter at Blackivists.
Thank you, Mark. You just dated me. I'm an old lady. I'm like, it's a web. No, and then the other point, just one other quick point, about the term co-piloting. I think early on, we really recognized the fact that we know we are professionals, and that's very important to be, a credentialed professional archivist offering, assistance as people think about developing their archives and best ways for to preserve their archives as well. But we don't always assume to, just because we have the skill set, we have the degree, we don't always assume that we are the expert in the room, because oftentimes there are a lot of folks who have their own ideas, and we honor that, we cherish that. And, we just fall in place to be able to, provide the level of support that's needed. And that can come in many ways, having multiple conversations about how to develop the archive itself, as well as if they were thinking about donating their archive to an institution, the steps that are needed to be able to, just kind of guide you through that process as well. And, assessments, all of that. So, I mean, as of course, we have our positions with our respective institutions, but we feel that it's very important as Black information professionals to work directly within our communities with our people. Because again, we do recognize that there are a lot of stories that are in communities that serve the communities that they're created in, which will never reach an institution, and that's absolutely fine. But what we're most concerned with is that, that information, whether it's photographs or whether, it's stories that we can have recorded, are preserved and are shared, because, it's important to contextualize the fact that we are here, we have been here, we will be here, and that, our stories are part of, the overarching American narrative or narratives.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So I think with that in mind and that said, and I believe we've got, let me do one more check. It looks like we've gotten all the questions answered. I think we're going to wrap up this episode. So I'd like to thank everyone again for tuning in to listen to this episode of Out of the Archives. Huge thanks to Skyla Hearn, for coming in and talking with us about not just the museum's archive and the Blackists, but really just ways that we can challenge and redefine the way that we work with archives and the way that we interact with archives. And I would like to thank all of our storytellers, Mary Baggett, Fred Cash, Saquon Lawrence, Raymond McDonald, Congressman Bobby Rush, Francine Washington, and Bruce Wilkerson, as well as the oral historians who helped gather these stories. We had Shirley Alfaro, Kimberly Cook, Ina Cox, and Shakira Johnson, who also helped me with co-curating this episode. You can visit our website, which is nphm.org, and SoundCloud page to take a listen to these in a more podcast form. You'll also be able to find transcripts of the entire piece on both those pages. So once again, thank you to everyone who tuned in. We hope this time that we shared together has been a little bit of a reprise for you during these difficult times. Museum, we are in solidarity with the struggle going on across this country, and we encourage you to do what you can to engage with the important work that thousands of people are doing across the country. Thanks again for spending time with us, and we're excited to share our next month's episode, which is called Play Ball, Sports and Athletics in Public Housing. Next month, it'll be the last Thursday. TBD on whether it'll be on Facebook or YouTube, but we will keep you posted. Thanks again once more for tuning in, and we will see you next month. Thanks again.
Take care, everybody. Take care. Bye.